Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And this is our Banzuke prediction for the upcoming Aki Basho. This is a little bit more delayed than we had anticipated. We wanted to record this about 5 to 6 days ago, but then we were introduced to the storm type derecho.
Yeah, you always know it's a real cool thing when you're learning vocabulary about what the hell it was that knocked out your power for a week.
Yeah, so we were planning on recording this Monday, but then at about 11 o'clock Monday morning, just 80 to 100 mile per hour winds stormed across our entire state, knocking out Jake and I's power, blowing Jake all the way up to Minnesota somehow.
Yeah, physically blowing me. It wasn't a choice that I made afterwards in order to stay with my parents and be able to work remotely.
No, Jake was physically blown all the way to Minnesota, just happened to land on his parents' doorstep.
With my computer and pets. Yeah, it was a very fortunate situation.
Yeah, I happened to be stuck at home without any air conditioning for 3+ days, and that was not fun. My wife doesn't do good in the heat. So a lot of people might be wondering, what the hell is a derecho? I have you covered. A derecho is a line of intense, widespread, and fast-moving windstorms and sometimes thunderstorms that moves across a great distance and is characterized by damaging winds. You may also ask yourself, how long does a derecho last? According to the National Weather Service, a derecho is classified as a band of storms that have winds of at least 60 miles per hour along the entire span of the storm front, maintained over a time span of at least 6 hours.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
It sucked.
And if you're new to derechos like me, you might also be wondering, what causes a derecho?
You're just filling time because you don't have a whole lot of content today, do you?
No, I got plenty of content. I'm just genuinely interested in this, like the most damaging storm in Iowa history, and I've never even heard of this storm type before.
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest thing that we've had to deal with as a state since, what year was it that the floods were real bad? Was that 2008 or 10?
Well, it depends. Are you talking about 2011, 2008, 1998, 1993?
The most recent one that was apocalyptic level. I think that was like 2010-ish.
I think 2008 were probably like our worst ones recently.
I know my wife's dad's office still has the picture of their office from a helicopter surrounded by water from one of those floods on the wall of the office.
Jeez. But as Jake so rudely interrupted me, I was going to tell people what causes the derecho.
And I'll do it again.
When the wet air in a thunderstorm meets the drier air surrounding it, the water in the air evaporates. When water evaporates, it cools the air around it. Since the cool air is denser, it rapidly sinks to the ground and creates strong winds. And the last derecho fact that I want to get out there is, how often does this happen? Because apparently once every 30 years would be, according to our knowledge of it. So the occurrence of derechos is let's find out. I haven't read this stat yet.
Oh, I see. We're going through the Wikipedia page together.
Sure. The occurrence of derechos is divided into 2 seasons. The warm season, which is in May, June, July, and August, our current season. 70% of all derechos occur during these 4 months. The remaining 8 months comprise of the cool season. Percent occurrences of the derechos, there's a whole lot more to that I'm not going to get into.
That's a longer sentence than you were bargaining for.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's what happened. That's why this episode is delayed. But delay it no longer. We will start going through our predicted Banzuke for the Aki Basho. And so we begin, as always, with the rank of Yokozuna, where we will have no change. Hakuho and Kakuryu will remain your Yokozuna in that order. At Ozeki, just a slight little shuffle, as Asanoyama had a better record than Takakeisho. He will be the East-ranked Ozeki, and Takakeisho will be the West-ranked Ozeki. And then we move down to the Sekiwake rank, where on the east side we will have Shodai, and the west side we will have Mitaki Yumi. keeping it the same from the previous tournament as they both had 11-4 records, so no reason to shuffle them up. But I do believe we are actually going to have a third Sekiwake in this tournament, as I think, despite the fact that 2 of his wins were Fusen, I think Daisho's 11-4 record will be enough for him to force open a third Sekiwake slot. So he will be Sekiwake East 2.
That hasn't happened during the recording period that we have covered, except for when an Ozeki drops down, right? Is that the only time that we've ever had triple Sekiwake?
Yeah, I think that's the only time where we've seen it. I think like when Koto Shokiku dropped, I think Takayasu might have forced like a third slot open. I might have some of the names wrong, but yeah, something like that where an Ozeki's dropping, so they're guaranteed to be Sekiwake, but somebody else deserves to be there as well, so they promote them. This one is just both Sekiwake did well and our Komosubi did really well as well, and so I believe they will open it up, and that's backed up by some stats. Every Komosubi that has gotten 11 wins has been ranked Sekiwake or Ozeki in the next Basho, I believe, without any, I can't think of...
Exceptions?
Exceptions, that is the word.
That's pretty interesting that you said Sekiwake or Ozeki, so somebody jumping from Komosubi to Ozeki? I'm trying to figure out how that would work. That would be a really weird situation.
I think I had to throw it in there because it happened once, and it was like way back before like the current structure is how it is.
Sure.
And so like might have been like in the 1800s or early 1900s where the rules were a lot less rigid as they currently are.
Yeah. I mean, like the way to define the modern era depends on what thing you're looking at, but pretty much everything has been exactly the same for about 70 years or so, since around like 1950 maybe.
Yeah, with the exact number of matches per tournament, tournaments per year, all of that stuff. Yeah,
all the ranks pretty much solidified. Yeah, so yeah, either way though, that makes a lot of sense though. So yeah, there are no exceptions that you found where somebody getting 11 wins from Komosubi did not get at least a Sekiwake.
Correct. So I did just do that research one more time since we were talking about it. So it was in 1938, actually the first instance of a Komosubi ever getting 11 wins. He went 11-2 in January of 1938 and then was promoted to Ozeki after that. And so let me see what preceded that. What preceded that was 7 wins from Maegashira 12. That's out of 11 matches. And then the one after that was 9 wins from Maegashira 5. That's out of 13 matches. And then the 11 from Komosubi out of 13 matches. And then he was Ozeki after that. And
very cool.
Actually promoted to Yokozuna a few years later. So this is the 39th Yokozuna Maedayama. So I did not know that going into this, but there we go. Origin story of another Yokozuna.
There you go. Cross him off the list. We don't have to do a bonus episode on him now.
That's probably about all we can get out of that guy. I've never heard of him before. So let's move on to that Komosubi rank, where we will have Okinoumi sliding from the west over to the east side after his 9-6 record. And then on the west side, we will have Endo jumping up from Maegashira 1 east to Komosubi west. So Endo, he's the guy that's going to benefit from Daisho's creation of an extra Sanyaku slot and grab that newly created Sanyaku slot, the 9th Sanyaku slot for Aki, where we've been having 7 or 8 for the past few Basho. So if Daisho doesn't get that bump up to Sekiwake because they say, those 2 Fusen wins, it's not enough to force that 3rd slot, then we could be looking at a situation where Endo could force open a 3rd Komosubi slot because he had, albeit it was just an 8-7 record, he had a winning record from Maegashira 1 East. So there is precedent for opening up a 3rd Komosubi slot in this situation. There is also at least one case of it not happening where your Maegashira 1 East stayed Maegashira 1 East after an 8-7 record, didn't get up to the Komosubi rank. But all those situations happened like over 40 years ago. Who knows how they would handle it now? So I think their handling of this situation to avoid any precedent setting is to give Daisho that 3rd Sekiwake slot, and then you have an open Komosubi slot, and Endo slides right in there.
Gotcha.
Fun little fact that I found in researching the creation of a third Komusubi slot for Endo. In Kyushu of 1976, the Maegashira 1 East Rikishi was Takamiyama, and the Maegashira 1 West Rikishi was Tamakiyama.
Oh. Huh.
So that must have been very confusing, that basho. Takamiyama and Tamakiyama.
That's funny. Takamiyama. Oh, God, now I don't know if I have them backwards or forwards. One of those guys is the Hawaiian, isn't he?
Takamiyama. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I am no longer positive, but I was leaning towards him as well.
Let's just do a quick little search on our good friend SumoDB, who is very nice and working during this episode. Oh God, there's been like 8-10 Takamiyamas.
It's okay, I found him. Yeah, Takamiyama Daigoro was the one that we're looking at.
Yep.
Jesse Kuhaulua, I believe, from Hawaii. Yeah, we've mentioned him a handful of times, but until this moment, I'd never really had too much difficulty remembering his name.
Until you were forced with the Takamiyama Tamakiyama situation.
Yeah, get that shit out of here.
Okay, we will do that by moving on to the Zone of Death, the top Maegashira ranks that will face all of our Sanyaku Rikishi. Starting at Maegashira 1 on the east side, I think we will have Takanosho as our top-ranked Maegashira after he had an 8-7 record from Maegashira 2 East. And then joining him on the west side, I think Hokudo Fuji is going to be going right back to where he's been for the greater part of the past 2 years, the upper Maegashira ranks. So starting with Hokudo Fuji, we have yet another Banzuke where we're just going to be pulling people up further than they numerically deserve and demoting people far less than they numerically deserve. So Hokudo Fuji had a 9-6 record, and by the numbers, 9 - 6, up 3 ranks, should be Maegashira 2, but because of the lack of other Rikishi that could go here, he gets pulled up 1 more slot. That's just a mild case of that happening, but it gets a lot worse because the Maegashira ranks for this basho, out of 34 Rikishi, only 14 had winning records, meaning that the other 20 had to have had losing records. So we need to pull people further up than we would normally like to fill all of those extra vacant spots by people dropping down the Banzuke. And what makes this even worse is that we have nobody dropping from the Sanyaku ranks to help fill in some of those upper Maegashira ranks, where, because it was just a bloodbath in the upper Maegashira ranks this basho. There's nobody dropping from the Sanyaku ranks to help fill up that space, so we have to pull people up a lot further. And so a lot of the Rikishi with winning records are used right away in the top 3 to 4 Maegashira ranks, which will make the rest of the Banzuke even tougher to navigate, as we have even fewer Rikishi with winning records to choose from to pull up, and just the difference between people with losing records and winning records gets even greater as we move through the top Maegashira ranks.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it especially looks like it was a difficult one to put together, because other than Kiribayama, who went 6-9 from Maegashira 3, all these guys did really bad up here.
Double-digit losses, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't just bump a guy down like 1 rank to help fill some of these spots. You have to, like, a lot of these guys have to go down like half the Banzuke.
Well, you would think so. They're not going to.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. I haven't seen your reasoning for the next few picks, so I'll shut up for a minute.
Yeah. So at Maegashira 2 on the east side, I do think this is where our Yusho winner, Teruno Fuji, will land. And this is basically using the precedent set by Tokushoryu earlier this year, jumping all the way up from M17 to M2, a 15 rank jump. So I know I had issues placing Tokushoryu. I think I had him going at like Maegashira 4 in my prediction. So without that precedent, who knows if I would have Teruno Fuji jumping this high. But sorry, if you might be able to hear that. That's my dog barking. We left our front window open, so there's probably a dog walking by us. And dear Lord, Piper hates that.
It's far from the first time she's made a guest appearance on the podcast. No big deal. I'm sure we're fine.
Yeah. So I've got Teruno Fuji jumping over quite a few guys, and I wanted to double check what Tokushoryu did to make sure there weren't like other weird circumstances that caused him to jump all the way up to Maegashira 2 for Maegashira 17. other than him winning the Yusho. So there's two main guys I wanted to make sure that Teruno Fuji would jump over. Terutsuyoshi at M7 with an 8-7 record, and Tamawashi at Maegashira 9 with a 10-5 record. I wasn't really too concerned about Teruno Fuji going past Terutsuyoshi, since a 5-rank jump for Terutsuyoshi would be pretty large for his 8-7 record, but he is 10 ranks higher than Teruno Fuji for this basho, so it's still a little bit of a concern. But when looking at who Tokushoryu jumped over when he was promoted to Maegashira 2, he went past an 9-6 Onosho, who is also ranked at Maegashira 7. So I feel pretty good with Teruno Fuji jumping past him. And it is important to point out, Tokushoryu did have one more win than Teruno Fuji, but I still think Teruno Fuji is going to pretty much receive the same treatment as Tokushoryu here.
Yeah, it's by far the best comparison out there.
Yes.
It is almost identical of a situation somehow.
Yeah. And so the other guy that I was concerned about is Tamawashi. And that one is important because after Teruno Fuji's 13 wins, 10 wins was the next highest total from any of the remaining to be ranked. And so Tamawashi is the highest ranked of these guys that have 10 wins at Maegashira 9. So if Teruno Fuji can jump him, he can obviously jump pretty much everybody else with a winning record. So checking back with Tokushoryu, his jump from January, he had an 11-4 Yutakayama that was ranked at Maegashira 9 that he jumped. So perfect comparison for Teruno Fuji, who I have jumping over a 10-5 Tamawashi at Maegashira 9. So I feel really comfortable moving Teruno Fuji past Tamawashi for the Aki Basho. So you might ask, like, why not move him past Takanosho and Hokudo Fuji? But Takanosho and Hokudo Fuji were both in. Hokudo Fuji didn't start in the Joy, but he pretty much ended up in the Joy based on people who pulled out. And so he faced most of the Sanyaku Rikishi and did pretty well against them. So I'm going to give them the slight benefit that they fought all the top guys, still ended up with a winning record. So they're going to be ahead of Teruno Fuji.
Fair enough. Yeah, that seems like the big story of this Banzuke is where to put him and how did the other guys go in to fit there. And I think that's really, I don't know. I don't want to say I like it, but I think it's cool. It's interesting that we have another Maegashira 17 Yusho to compare it to just a few months ago.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier than trying to place Tokushoryu with zero precedent not 4 months ago, 8 months ago. Jesus Christ, that was 8 months ago. Oh my God. 7 months. I can math.
100 years.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our Maegashira 2 West, and that is going to be Tamawashi going there, jumping up 7 ranks from Maegashira 9. The only person ranked ahead of him with a winning record that is yet to be ranked is Terutsuyoshi, and as we mentioned, he only had 8 wins, so Tamawashi's 10 wins from just 2 ranks down further from Terutsuyoshi will trump that. And as Jake said, all of our people with losing records that are dropping had such bad records that we can't drop anyone just 1 rank to take this spot. So a 7 rank jump for a 10-5 Tamawashi, who we would typically expect to see jump only 4 to 5 ranks.
Lucky guy.
And another lucky guy is going to be Maegashira 3 on the east side. I believe it will be Miyogiryu, and it's pretty much the same exact story as Tamawashi, up 7 ranks after a 10-5 record. And then we move on to the Maegashira 3 West rank. I was pretty close to giving this spot to Tochinoshin instead of Terutsuyoshi, who I am giving the Maegashira 3 West rank to. But Tochinoshin would be up 8 ranks after a 10-5 record. Not that Terutsuyoshi going up 4 ranks after an 8-7 record is all that better. The only thing that really stopped me is that Terutsuyoshi did face a significantly higher ranked schedule than Tochinoshin throughout the entirety of the basho. But most importantly, Terutsuyoshi did face Ozeki Asanoyama and beat him. So it's just kind of my gut feeling that will be enough for Terutsuyoshi to get the nod over Tochinoshin for that Maegashira 3 West rank.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. That looks like a point that could be just like right on the 50-50 edge. I'm looking at a couple other Banzuke predictions, and I'm seeing everywhere I'm looking has Tochinoshin, Terutsuyoshi pretty much right in the same spot there, and it's just a matter of which one is higher.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if Tochinoshin's ahead of Tetsuyoshi there. But you kind of gotta just take some risks with the Banzuke prediction if you want to get it exactly right, because if you try to like set up a formula for how it works, there's always going to be something that the Banzuke committee does that just goes completely against that formula. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. So just kind of a gut feeling, but we'll see how it shakes out. And so at Maegashira 4 East, the last member of the Joy will be Tochinoshin, obviously. And so after Tochinoshin, we have 26 ranks left to fill and only 6 more Rikishi from the Makuuchi division with winning records to pull up the Banzuke. So everybody else will either be Rikishi that are dropping or Rikishi that we have pulled up from Juryo. So we start the mid Maegashira ranks at Maegashira 4 West, and I believe we're going to have Kiribayama here. I'm kind of torn between Kiribayama and Yutakayama for this spot. So Kiribayama had a 6-9 record from Maegashira 3, and Yutakayama had a 5-10 record from Maegashira 1. I'm going with Kiribayama here because numerically, they would both kind of deserve to be ranked at Maegashira 6. But Kiribayama had the better record overall, 6-9 versus 5-10, and they were both in the Joy, so it's not like Yutakayama faced a harder schedule than Kiribayama. They faced the same schedule pretty much. So I don't think one should get preference over the other, so I'm going with the person that had the better record being ranked higher here.
Yeah, that's only one numbered rank drop for Kiribayama, but it is important to note that because of that third Sekiwake slot that you opened up, everybody is by like the order that they're ranked, I think is how you phrased it last time we had screwery like this. Mm-hmm. Kiribayama is actually dropping 3 instead of just 2, kind of.
Yeah. And so at Maegashira 5 East, we will have Yutakayama going there. And actually, go back to Jake's point, Kiribayama dropping only 1 spot with a 6-9 record. There is precedent for that recently. I know that happened to Ryuden recently, so I don't feel like it's a terribly huge risk doing something like that. So we got Yutakayama dropping 4 ranks after a 5-10 record, which is actually kind of what you would expect for that. So that's one of the few times that's going to possibly happen on this Banzuke.
Especially coming out of the Joy, like he's not going to drop quite as far as he would if he got a 5-10 from the mid ranks or something.
Right, exactly. And so Maegashira 5 West, I think we're going to get Takayasu here. He is another guy that had a 10-5 record. And this would be an 8 rank jump for Takayasu after a 10-5 record. So the reason why I'm going with him is he's the highest ranked remaining Rikishi besides Sada no Umi, who only got an 8-7 from like 1 rank ahead of him. So Takayasu would jump over him. And everyone ahead of him had 5 wins or less. So they need to be knocked further down the Banzuke, in my opinion. So he's getting a very generous promotion of an 8 rank jump after a 10-5 record. Maegashira 6 on the east side. I think this is where we'll have Takeda Fuji here. So it's either going to be Takeda Fuji dropping only 3 ranks after a 5-10 record, or Wakataka Kage jumping up 9 ranks after a 10-5 record. So since Takeda Fuji was in the Joy and 9 ranks is an awful lot for Wakataka Kage to jump, I think we're going to go with Takeda Fuji dropping only 3 ranks after a 5-10 record. On the west side, I'm going to have Ryuden just stick where he was the previous Basho. He had a 7-8 record, but once again, to keep from over-promoting Wakataka Kage more than he already will be, we're going to keep Ryuden here, which happens all the time with Rikishi that finish 7-8 record. So it's really nice thing to have in this situation.
He's dropping one order rank, but technically his rank will be the same.
Correct. And so Maegashira 7 on the east side, I do have Wakataka Kage going there. So he is jumping up from Maegashira 14, so that's a 7 rank jump for him. So I lied when I said 9 rank jump for Wakataka Kage at Maegashira 6. It would be an 8 rank jump, but still, we're going to go with Wakataka Kage at Maegashira 7. It doesn't change my thought at all. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And I'm going to treat Tokushoryu the same exact way I'm treating Ryuden and keeping him at his same rank from the July tournament. So Tokushoryu will be the Maegashira 7 West. That moves us down to the Maegashira 8 rank, where we have a pair of Rikishi that were in the Joy and went 5 and 10 in the previous tournament, Kagayaki and Aoyama. I got both of them sticking together again for this tournament and dropping down 4 ranks from Maegashira 4 to Maegashira 8. I have seen some people move them ahead to like Maegashira 7, and like in lieu of moving up Wakataka Kage that high and possibly dropping down Tokushoryu. But I think, and they were in the Joy, so they might get that preferential treatment. That I think that might be my biggest thing that I'm concerned about on this Banzuke is Kagayaki and Aoyama actually being 1 rank ahead. But they're still getting a 4 rank drop after a 5 and 10 record. That still feels good to me. Wakataka Kage jumping up 7 ranks is the same as like Miyuki Ryu and Tamawashi. So we'll see how that turns out, but I wouldn't be surprised if I get that one wrong. Maegashira 9, we have on the east side Sada no Umi, who will be jumping up 3 ranks after an 8 and 7 record for Maegashira 12, and Koto Eiko, Maegashira 9 West, another 10 and 5 Rikishi that I believe will be jumping up 7 or more ranks, as Koto Eiko was Maegashira 16 with a 10 and 5 record. And that will bring us to the bottom of the Banzuke, our double-digit Rikishi. And so at Maegashira 10 on the east side, I have Enho slotting in here after a 5 and 10 record from Maegashira 6, dropping down 4 ranks. And on the west side, I have Chiyo Tairyu, who had a 6 and 9 record from Maegashira 8, dropping down 2 ranks for him. Maegashira 11 on the east side, this is where I've got our poor sad boy Onosho falling after his 2 and 13, just absolutely pathetic 2 and 13 performance in the July tournament.
God,
so
that
there
was
were,
sad.
It really was. There were a few candidates for this spot, but I think Onosho, having been in the Joy and already having a sizable drop of 9 ranks, will give him the edge over the others who would either be further over promoted or under demoted by going in this slot. So I think Onosho dropping 9 ranks is plenty for him, and Maegashira 11 East is a good stopping point for his fall. And then on the west side, I've got Koto Shokiku going at Maegashira 11 West, a 3 rank jump after his 8 and 7 record for Maegashira 14. At Maegashira 12 on the east side, I think this is where we will have Kaisei, who is going to be dropping 2 ranks after a 6 and 9 record for Maegashira 10. And I think we will have Koto Shoho on the west side, jumping up. Sorry, I have a little burp that's trying to escape. Jumping up 3 ranks after an 8.
You can do it. Get it out.
Hold on. It was very slight, but it did come out there. All right.
Proud of you.
On the west side, we will have Koto Shoho jumping up 3 ranks after an 8 and 7 record. So that moves us to Maegashira 13, where on the east side, I believe we will have our first Juryo promotee in Meisei, who won the Juryo 6-way playoff Yusho after his 10 and 5 record from the top-ranked Juryo spot. So numerically, he could be ahead of Rikishi like Onosho or Kaisei, but they always seem, at least in recent history, have been giving preference to Rikishi that were in Makuuchi over the Rikishi coming up from Juryo. So I'm going to place Meisei a little bit lower than what the numbers would tell me to, and so he's going to be sliding in here at Maegashira 13. And on the west side, this is where the dumbass Abi, I think he will be landing. An 8 rank drop after his 3 and 12 record from Maegashira 5, and this drop will only continue as he will miss the Aki Basho and the 2 Basho after it as well. So this will be the last time we see Abi in the Makuuchi division for a little while.
I believe I've heard predictions that he'll end up somewhere in like the 20-ish range within the Makushita division.
So even if he went 7-0, he wouldn't be promoted back to Juryo.
Yeah, so we're likely 1, 2, 3. He'll likely take 4 tournaments, give or take, to get back. So somewhere in the neighborhood of mid to late 2021 is probably when we would see him come back, if he comes back in good form.
Yeah, that's if he's getting like 10 or more wins in his Juryo Bashos.
Yeah, but it's certainly possible and precedented to get through Juryo with only 2 Basho.
Yeah, definitely.
Teruno Fuji.
Yeah. Moving on to Maegashira 14 on the east side, I think we will have Ishiura, who is going to be dropping 6 ranks after a 4-11 record. And I think on the west side, we will have Shima no Umi, who will be dropping 3 ranks after a 5-10 record. Maegashira 15 on the east side, I believe this will be Tobizaru from Juryo. I think he will be making his Makuuchi debut. So he had a 9-6 record from Juryo 2 in the previous Basho. And so I think he will be just slightly ahead of Sho Hozan, whose 3-day win streak at the end of the July tournament should be enough to keep him in Makuuchi. So it made people like Nishikigi and Ikiyoi higher priority demotion cases than Sho Hozan. In what is already a fairly weak promotion field from Juryo, I feel like there's only 2 clear-cut promotions from Juryo, and we've already seen them, Meisei and Tobizaru. But there are 3 clear-cut demotion cases from Makuuchi. So Sho Hozan pretty much saved himself from being a clear-cut case with that final 3-day win streak. And like I said, people like Koto Nowaka, who had a 4-11 record from Maegashira 13, or Ikiyoi, who had a 3-12 record from Maegashira 9. Sho Hozan would deserve to be demoted less than those 2. And there's already 2 other guys that need to be demoted as well. So with a weak promotion field, Sho Hozan should stay in the Makuuchi division.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys right there on that bubble.
There are, yeah. And one of them is going to be our Maegashira, or I believe will be our Maegashira 16 on the east side, Kyoku Taisei. So, like I said, only 2 clear-cut Juryo promotions, but I think Kyoku Taisei, with him getting a 10-5 record from Maegashira 5, and like I said, 3 clear-cut demotion cases from the Makuuchi division, Koto Yuki, Chiyomaru, and Koto Nowaka. At least 1 Juryo Rikishi was going to get lucky. Could be more that get lucky and promoted, but I think Kyoku Taisei will definitely be the biggest beneficiary of those 3 Makuuchi guys getting demoted down to Juryo and will be promoted up to the Makuuchi division. And on the west side, I think we will have Ikiyoi here at Maegashira 16 West, a 7-rank drop for him after his 3-12 record. Very close decision for him to go down to Juryo after that performance in July. But like I said, it's not a lot of clear cases to be promoted from Juryo. And there is 1 more Makuuchi Rikishi, I believe, that has a higher priority demotion case than Ikiyoi, according to the numbers at least, which means our final spot is either going to come down to 6-9 Nishikigi from Maegashira 16, or a 10-5 Hoshoryu from Juryo 6. And I do believe they will give that nod to Hoshoryu at Maegashira 17 East, the final Makuuchi division. So I'm giving him the nod here. It was very tempting to predict Nishikigi to go at this spot, and I'm pretty much 50-50 on this line. So numerically, Hoshoryu deserves to be ranked ahead of Nishikigi. But like I said, they have preference for the Makuuchi Rikishi over the Juryo Rikishi coming up. And Nishikigi does seem to be very good at holding on to that very bottom spot in the Makuuchi division sometimes. But I like Hoshoryu more. And I think when you're at already towards the bottom of the Banzuke, Nishikigi was at Maegashira 16. You need to do a bit better than a 6-9 record, or you should be demoted. So I think Hoshoryu will get the benefit of that, jumping up 6 ranks after a 10-5 record from Juryo 6. And we will not have a Maegashira 17 West rank this Basho, since we have that extra Sanyaku rank that was opened up by a promoted Daisho. So we have our 4 guys that are going to be demoted to Juryo, because we had Meisei, Tobizaru, Kyoku Taisei, and Hoshoryu jump up from Juryo. So that will be Koto Nowaka, Chiyomaru, Nishikigi, and Koto Yuki.
Hey, can you list those in order of how certain you are that they'll be dropping out?
Koto Yuki, Chiyomaru, Koto Nowaka, Nishikigi.
Gotcha.
So that's from most to least certain. And so, Jake, what do you think my worst prediction is for this Banzuke?
I think that the Juryo crossover here is the murkiest bit, and I'm going to do something that one of my other favorite podcasts does. I'm going to do the sadness hedge, is what it's called, where I don't think Hoshoryu is going to get into the Makuuchi division, because if I'm wrong, then hooray, good for Hoshoryu. And if I'm right, hooray, I got the bet right.
That's always a very solid tactic to take there.
The sadness hedge. But yeah, I think that, the crossover here is pretty murky just because there are so many guys on the bubble and so many different little tiebreaker bits that we don't really know how the decision is going to be made on.
Yeah. All right. So that is going to wrap up this episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listening service.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, blog, email, and voicemail.
YouTube.
And YouTube.
Yep. All of those can be found using Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Using your search bar.
Yep, that too. Voicemail is 805-613-7866. That is 805-613-SUMO. The actual factual Banzuke will be released, I believe, on August 30th, with the tournament beginning on September, I believe that would be 13th.
Kind of weird how, it feels like sumo was gone for a million years, and now we're doing it again already.
Well, yeah, because this one was delayed by 2 weeks, and so it's an even shorter off season this time because the next tournament is not delayed by 2 weeks. So we get a little bit of a quicker turnaround here. So it'll only be a couple more weeks before we have our Banzuke review episode. And also keep an eye out. We're going to be digging deep into the July tournament and our simulation to see what we got right, what we got wrong. We'll have a bonus episode for that between now and the Banzuke review episode. So until then, we will see you later.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time,
Throw your salt high.
And keep moving forward.